Welcome in, everyone. My name is Gracey with Northern Astrology, and I'm here to talk to you today about football and astrology and the Kansas City Chiefs hosting the Los Angeles Chargers. Thank God I did not call them San Diego. It's just an old habit, and I've mentioned it before on the stream that I can't stop myself. So if you hear me call the Chargers San Diego today, just bear with me. No, I'm doing my best during Mercury retrograde and now Mars retrograde. So, speaking of Mars retrograde, I do want to pull up something that was asked of me earlier today. And it's simply a question from Belly Jellies. I love that name. And let me make that a little bit bigger for those of us, including myself, that might need large font to read. The main reason I'm excited every Sunday is I know these breakdowns are coming, and now that Mars is retrograde, I'm curious to hear how you see that impacting the rest of the football season and the Chiefs today. I'm super excited to be answering this question, and more importantly, excited to be deferring to the late, great Aaron Sullivan. This is a book, Retrograde Planets, that has given me so much insight into my own Pluto retrograde in my chart. And, it's something that can help with understanding retrograde periods in general, because you might not have retrograde planets in your chart, but you absolutely experience retrogrades. Speaking of which, Neptune is now direct. I had crazy dreams last night. And I also took a lot of sleep aid, plant-based sleep aid. So I'm not sure if that was because of Neptune stationing direct or because I needed to sleep. All weekend long, I have been sleeping. So Mars retrograde for me is happening in my second house, and then it'll move into my first house. I believe, no, actually it's just all in my first house. Yeah, my birth, in case you guys missed it, my birth time changed this summer, and I'm now getting used to my chart again being, just like a Gemini moon, to be so elusive that we get the birth time almost correct, and we still have the same rising, but everything is shifted in our chart completely. So yes, Mars retrograde happening in my first house, and then barely going over my ascendant and into my 12th house, and then coming back out to station direct. I'm very excited that I will be mostly at home and resting, because right now Mars retrograde is teaming up with Mercury retrograde, and I feel like the reason that I mentioned having hard conversations during this time is needed for your mental health, as well as clearing up that heart chakra. You don't want to go into winter solstice wearing things heavily on your heart if possible. If you cannot avoid that and you are simply going to be in the emotional flow of things without any sort of time to really work on those things that might be residing within, I think that winter solstice is going to give us a time right before New Year, those last days between winter solstice, and then we have what most people here in America celebrate as Christmas. I know it's different all over the world, what the different holiday festivals going on during December, and also really all this year, last month we had a ton of different cultures celebrating different events. And then we had the American Thanksgiving that, most of us just get together and watch football and eat a lot of food. It has nothing to do with celebrating the original people that came to this country. So it's all about just gathering and getting together with family and friends. And that can be hard around this time of year. Let's be real. So a lot of this Mars retrograde in Leo and Cancer is about working from the heart chakra and working out those blockages and obstacles in your heart chakra as much as possible. I have to do it every day. I am a Gemini moon. I also happen to be an Aries sun. Those two have nothing to do with each other. They happen to be exactly sextile. And sometimes my road rage gets the best of me. I'm a very nice person until you are screwing up driving in front of me. And that's not something that I like to have as part of my life. So I work on that a lot by simply telling myself, hey, you got to develop systems in order to not deal with these emotions at certain points. So I'm really excited to see how Mars retrograde turns out for the Chiefs. And I'm not really sure how we can do that outside of just going directly to the Chiefs chart and how they're showing up today. Um, First things first, they have Leo and Mars already. And part of what I wanted to read from the planets in retrograde, which I'll go back to the camera only scene for this question. My editor will appreciate me in the long run. The Mars retrograde in the natal chart. Okay, so this is something that shows up for people natally. Is the Sun Mars battles as seen through the retrograde function often manifests in people as a sense that their energy and heroic ethos has been stolen or suppressed. People with Mars retrograde have to dig more deeply to find their sense of individual superiority and frequently find themselves at a loss as to how to go about this task. That is in the natal chart, and that is Mars retrograde in the natal chart. I have a different view of Mars retrograde because my best friend is Libra Mars retrograde, and she's absolute powerhouse. Like, she literally just placed first in some insane fitness competition this weekend in Miami and was killing it with her team after like slightly, and I'm just telling her business, it's fine, she's used to this, after slightly having some doubt about herself and compared to others. Like, there's global level Olympic athletes there at this competition, and she's like, who the fuck am I to be going up against these people? So I feel as though when Erin Sullivan drops those gems, and I'm not going to read her whole book because I feel like that's something that you can buy. This book, it's very accessible. Retrograde Planets by Erin Sullivan. But part of her understanding of Mars retrograde and how it shows up, and it's about that like almost feeling less than energy. I feel as though this will show up for the Chiefs as the lion in The Wizard of Oz finding his heart and knowing that the courage is there. And the main thing that we have to focus on today is going to be this energy right here, because if you want to talk about how Mars retrograde will show up for the Chiefs, we got to talk about how it's going to show up for the driving force of the Chiefs, Mr. Patrick Mahomes. I wish I had a chart for like the defense and like how they show up as a side of the ball and how they show up as a defensive unit. So I think that'd be really cool. But I do want to point out here that in this quarterback tri-wheel, we are looking at the noon charts for Patrick Mahomes and Justin Herbert. So I always try to call him Hunter Herbert, and I have no idea why. So there's that. I'm glad that I got his name right. That's really exciting for me. So today's game, as you can see by this little preview, and I think the preview that I showed you guys before when it showed the Chiefs chart as cast against the game of tonight for Sunday Night Football in Kansas City, Missouri, at Arrowhead Stadium. We will never call it the Healthcare Stadium name that apparently they sold the rights to the field for. No, thank you. Not in this economy. The Chargers and Chiefs have a moon-ruled chart today. So, naturally, as a moon-ruled person, I can tell you this is going to be hella emotional and very intense. I'm just going to go ahead and point out that we are looking at where the moon falls in today's chart, and the moon happens to be in the 9th house with what I refer to as the travel team house. This is where you can find the away team and hints about the away team, with the moon in Pisces at the kill or be killed degree of 22 degrees. That is a Capricorn ruled degree if you are into degree theory. If you're not, well, I am. So I hope that you understand it at least so you can follow along, and I'll stop talking shit so I can help my poor allergies happening each and every day. I can't like say too much because then I'm like, oh yeah, excuse me while I have to blow my nose. That's how I register when I have been going too long, is when I need water or I need to blow my nose. I'm like, okay, you need to take a break. I can yap. If you are not familiar with my show that happens each week, it's about 2 solid hours of me talking at a very high pace, to where some people would say I should slow down. and help others catch up and take notes. So I'm going to do my best. This is where I thrive, though, is like giving these live breakdowns and helping people understand my process in real time, because it is a fun process that I am still developing each and every live stream. I am learning something new about the team. I am learning something new about my process. I'm learning something new about myself. I'm learning something new about technology. Let's be real. So it's been really fun to do these so far, and I'm looking forward to. I think I'm going to do a live one on Christmas because it'll actually help me look nice for when my family comes over. I will have my hair and makeup done, which is something I never do for holidays. I am like, if I don't have to have hair and makeup done, it is not happening. And it's not have to. It's just like when I do these streams, I like to present my 10th house self and not my 4th house self. I am a 10th house Aries sun, so the energy is literally there for days, and I could go on for hours about all of these things. So getting back to the ninth house travel team and where we see today's chart ruler, the 22-degree Pisces moon there in the ninth house, loosely conjunct Saturn and Neptune. So as you guys probably know, Neptune is more of a generational planet, and it rules more of a period of time versus really makes a direct impact on an individual. It can show where the person wears rose-colored glasses. So there's a slight possibility here that Justin Herbert, since we are talking about the quarterback matchup today, is going to be experiencing some rose-colored glasses, or maybe doesn't see himself in the strong enough light that he needs to in order to be competitive today. So with that being said, today's game is going to be incredibly emotional with that chart ruler. Has 22 degrees Pisces. This is a boisterous degree. This is a fun new energy degree. This is a degree where you can get shit done. This is also a degree that happens to be conjunct Patrick Mahomes' Saturn retrograde at 21 degrees. And if that's not enough, then Justin Herbert's sun is at 20 degrees Pisces there in the ninth house. So sun and Saturn conjunctions in sports charts, I am not really that big of a fan, because it seems to slow down or restrict physically one person or the other. With Saturn retrograde here for Patrick Mahomes on the outer wheel, and then Justin Herbert's sun, and then South Node and Jupiter that we will be using for the chart. I know there's other placements that show up because I was doing other things and forgot to take those placements off the wheel before starting the show. So, Sun and South Node and Jupiter there in Pisces with today's Saturn, Moon, Neptune, and then also the North Node in Aries, rounding out that ninth house. I do believe this is like almost the energy that one would want coming into a game where you can be in a flow state. You can use Saturn to help structure and boost your emotions in a way that can lead to discipline with your emotions. But then Neptune is there to be like, you sure about that? But at least it's direct now, right? So it's like we get a Neptune direct, which is something that we haven't had for a minute. I think July maybe was, I don't know, don't quote me on that one. I've been doing so much work in the future for astrology. The Astrology of 2025 workbook is something that myself and 3 other incredibly and talented astrologers have been working on in the background, and we are going to be debuting that January 1st, 2025. First thing on New Year's Day. It is not going to be an expensive purchase. We have an ebook file as well as an actual physical copy that I'm looking forward to giving you guys. So big things happening for myself and my incredible, I guess, coworkers, peers, these incredible astrologers that have been really thinking differently in my own practice. So I'm really looking forward to being able to share more about that. And it'll be coming out with winter solstice copy of my magazine. So in case you missed it, I have a book coming out. I have a quarterly magazine already. I have a weekly live show, and then I have a monthly show featuring the Real Housewives of Bravo TV and doing an astrological profile with them. So to say that I'm busy on top of raising 2 beautiful, amazing, intelligent, driven children and running my household and taking care of my father and trying to manage half a life of my own, yeah, your girl is busy. So I have been sleeping so much this weekend in preparation for my push into, the sports astrology world and the more things that I do with this is kind of where I feel like I can grow my practice with maybe possibly writing a book in the future of my sports astrology findings. So, very excited for that one. I'm looking forward to, I might have to disconnect my Twitter here real quick and go back live. So, Twitter, I guess, decided to cut out, and that's where Mercury retrograde kicks in. So, if you guys are, looking for the second part of the Twitter stream because it cut out on the OBS software that I'm using, I apologize. It is going to be 2 of them today. But hey, that just bumps up my Twitter annoyance to where you guys have to mute another thing going live. So, if you already muted this and you're like, damn it, Gracey, you're still talking. Too bad. I'm going to be going for a while. Getting back to like the actual things that I'm doing, but having the ability to have so many different platforms and shows and concepts that I'm working on constantly, and having these things kind of like, in my opinion, just take off on their own and build up to the point where I can stream things, walk away, they can help people, and there's always like resources there. I'm doing a lot of different types of, showcasing my talents. So if you guys are enjoying any of these streams and want to work further with me, you can book readings in my descriptions or bios or links wherever they are, wherever you're watching this. They're all easy to be found, and I have some different things. If you just want to ask one question, like, here's my birth information, I've never looked up my chart before, one question is a $50 reading I have, and I give you like 3 to 4 pages about your question. So you could even be like, hey, I've never done astrology before, how do I do this? And you can be like, here's my information, which stays secure. I have a thing on my site that says I'm not Mark Zuckerberg, and I'm not going to sell your data. I'm not going to sell your information. I view birth times and birth information as sacred as your DNA type. So, it's something that I also have Patrick Mahomes's actual birth chart and birth time through his mother, but I don't have his permission directly to share his chart publicly, so I'm not going to. There are a lot of people that have been predicting downfalls of Patrick Mahomes because of his impending Saturn return being exact, I believe, February 2025. It's just, leave the dude alone. He's a young athlete. I mean, it's really everyone. Don't be invasive with people's birth information. Like, I could literally go into so many things with people's birth times, and when I have them confirmed, you can look at so many different angles. There's so many layers to a birth chart. It is important that you allow some semblance of privacy. And like, I also don't like talking about my clients on social media, like, oh my gosh, you guys, I just had a client with this and this in their chart. Like, that's so weird to me. Or I just predicted this for my client and it happened. It's like, okay, they can like let that happen in the reviews. And while I'm currently redoing my website and rebranding and doing a lot of things in the background, I am going to keep those core values. I'm going to keep the sentiment that these things are sacred and should be kept that way, unless someone's like, let's use it, let's do a YouTube series. And that's where I think I am super excited, because so many of the Real Housewives have been super open to this process, and I'm looking forward to sharing them all with you. So I am going to get back to today's quarterback chart, where I am looking for Mercury retrograde too. I am looking for Mercury retrograde. I'm also looking for Mars retrograde and how that's going to affect the Chiefs. The one thing I wanted to point out is that if you look on the outer wheel for Patrick Mahomes' chart, you see his Mars in Scorpio, very, very happy in Scorpio in that 4th house of today's game, squaring Mars retrograde and Leo. So very exact degree, 6 degrees Leo, 6 degrees Scorpio for Mahomes. It's going to, I believe, help him slow down and stop making mistakes. I think Mars retrograde, like I said, my best friend, is a powerhouse when it comes to the fitness and competition community. And like, it can show up as not thinking that you're good enough. You might have some things in your head. There might be some previous instances, like bad games that he's had this last few weeks, that he's just like, what the hell is happening? So Mahomes could very easily get into that today. And when we look at Justin Herbert's chart, we see his Mars in Aries is trine Mars and Leo retrograde. So I feel like that is going to be a little bit more of like an anchoring or like dragging feeling more than it is a bolstering, building feeling for Herbert. So definitely going to be interesting there. Going back to the game chart, I kind of went like all over the place, but this was a great question. And I think the rest of football season for the entire NFL, we could look at the kickoff chart to see where the NFL season Mars retrograde is kicking in and like where that is like actually showing up. But I'm really looking forward to seeing how hopefully less gruesome injuries and more people playing from the heart. You know, Mars is all about passion and Mars is all about drive and determination and getting what you want at whatever cost is necessary. So we got to be careful when Mars is retrograde because you could end up having an intense conversation that reshapes and reframes everything that you've ever felt about a person or about yourself or about an issue that you see from a new light at this point. The anger that can flare up and literally just pour out of you through your body. Like astrology, as much as it is a cosmic spiritual science, it is also something that I believe is something that you physically embody as well. And so there are parts of the body ruled by different parts of the zodiac, and I think that that's really cool to see. And there's going to be some times that we feel uncomfortable, and this game today with a 22-degree Pisces moon is going to feel uncomfortable. I happen to enjoy this degree of Pisces simply because I feel as though the 22-degree is not necessarily a kill or be killed situation. For everything. You know, there's a lot of factors that go into why things are dangerous, to why things are not necessarily feeling good at the moment. The Pisces moon is more or less helping us flow with those emotions of everything happening in the world around us. You know, the 12th house is the collective consciousness of sorts, and Pisces is home in the 12th house, and Jupiter rules over that 12th house, Jupiter and Neptune, if you're going with the modern rulership in tropical astrology. I definitely believe that there is something about Jupiter today being in that 11th house, station retrograde. I think that that's such a cooperation and team play. Like the 11th house in general is very much, in my opinion, where the team and like cooperation and heavy, like, how are we going to pull through this? How are we going to connect? How are we going to unify as a force, you know, and get through this? And with Jupiter station retrograde there, it's going to be interesting for sure. Gemini, stereotypically, you can talk about Gemini any way you want to, being the twins, the children, you know, the duality of Gemini. But looking at the air signs, there's so much balance and there's so much, you know, energy there today that I believe that, you know, we're going to be feeling a lot of swift action, even though this is a moon ruled chart, and the moon being in Pisces can kind of make things hella emotional, especially trine the ascendant. So let's look at the Sabian symbol degrees of today's game and my non-manicured nails. I'm going like all natural these days. Like Gemini does rule over the hands, and I have a Gemini moon, and a lot of the energy work that I do is released through the hands, and it's like, okay, I'm going to keep no acrylics on them for now. So I used to have acrylics, then I used to have gel manicures all the time, and now I'm just like, you know what? I'm going to go bare. Why not? 20 degrees Cancer is a Scorpio ruled degree if you're following along with degree theory, and it's a degree that is represented by Venetian gondoliers in a serenade. So this is very much like a pampered experience of some energy, like karmically. It's about breaking away from restriction or expectation. So, you know, going to the depths here. Moon world charts are incredibly emotional. I don't have to like tell anyone that follows along with astrology that. If you are brand new to astrology and are just here to get some parlays and get some insight into what to do for betting today, I'll get to that in a little bit. You know how it goes. I'm a little bit long-winded. The truth degree today is Cancer 21 degrees, and it is a prima donna singing. And that to me represents like maybe somebody singing the national anthem or singing at halftime. It's like very much a pivotal moment or something where today's singing happens and maybe it unifies a bunch of people. I'm not sure, but it's always about sometimes when people don't know when to stop being a prima donna as well. So interesting, very interesting. Seeing people kind of like just being over the top and diva like today could be an easy theme. The solution degree to today's game is a young woman awaiting a sailboat. I can tell you now that this is going to be very symbolic because we are in Kansas City and not many places to even put a sailboat, let alone use one. I don't really know how that correlates sailboat wise, but imagery wise, waiting or anticipating or, whatever it is that you're doing, don't rely on an undependable outcome. I think when you're left waiting for the wind to carry your sails to get you somewhere, you can kind of be left ass out. That's a great way to put it. That's a modern way to put it. That's a more less beautiful way to put it. I have a way with words. What can I say? Ass out. It could leave you ass out. It could be waiting for one ship to come in, bubbles bursting, waiting for Mr. and Mrs. Perfect, ignoring what's readily available. So in a football chart, am I going to know like how to use every Sabian symbol to break down every single theme? Maybe. It's a distinct possibility. I have this really uncanny way of just predicting exactly what's going to happen with the tempo and paces of the game. So I'm just going to keep going with this one. But I do feel as though this is going to be a theme more of looking over one shoulder for the away team with that moon in the 9th house. We're looking at the away team kind of being on edge. They know what they're coming into. These Chiefs are not going to surprise anybody with their last minute, we're going to win at any cost tactics. The Chargers are well aware now that the Chiefs can pull out victories out of their ass, so to speak. It is still Sagittarius season, so I can say ridiculously vulgar things and get away with it. Mostly because, Capricorn season is coming and that's very much a quiet time for me. So, as we're looking at, once again, if you're not aware, this is my very old, very tattered copy of Linda Hill's 360 Degrees of Wisdom. It is the book that I use the most. While I am great at memorizing things, I have also been great at doing so many things that I don't have time to memorize anything. So I'm working on memorizing all these Sabian symbols and degrees so I don't have to have a book and I'm just an unstoppable force wherever I go, and I don't have to consult a book that's falling apart and held together by painter's tape. It just doesn't look as professional as I'm going for. Speaking of professional, Greenlight Dispensary. Thank you. We are going to be looking at the moon degrees real quick because as much as I want to say the rising degrees are very important today, I think that 20 and the numbers to watch is going to be the loudest part of that rising, and maybe diva-like behavior. So those are the two things that I do expect with the rising for today's game. All right, so 22 degrees Pisces is a prophet bringing down the new law from the mountain. Very much Moses energy, very much like, okay, I rallied the troops. I went up and talked to God. I know what we need to do. Here it is. So if anyone can understand this, it's definitely going to be Patrick Mahomes with his Saturn right there, and his, truth degree to his Saturn being this 22 degrees of Pisces. And I'm not saying that Patrick Mahomes is having conversations with God, although he very much could. Who knows what he does in his free time? This truth degree for today's moon is actually going to be a materializing medium giving a seance. And I love that degree. It is my North Node exact degree. So that is the karmic degree to my North Node. The truth degree to my North Node, and the solution degree to today's moon is the tiny island seems lost in the broad ocean, but its happy inhabitants have created a world of their own. So today's game and the key to today's game is having fun no matter what, creating your own world, being so lost in your own movements that you try to outrun what's happening in today's game. Because it's big. It's definitely big in the way that we have two young teams facing off against each other, and the Chiefs have been skating by with barely any sort of safety net. So it'll be interesting to see how it goes. I do want to pull up the not San Diego Chargers chart. This is the Los Angeles Chargers. So I am going off these older dates of when the teams were announced being a part of the NFL. So that is why I have the older dates. I am, once again, if you are new here, I am constantly developing and growing my formula and constantly trying to develop new things to do because I am an Aries and I get bored if I only have 14 projects. I need that 15th, 16th, 17th, 18th, 19th thing to do. And they're all just continually happening. So I am going to be redoing the sports charts that I use over the off season because I'm going to be moving forward with using the first game played and the current version of their home stadium. So that means the Raiders chart will completely update to when the first home game was played in Raiders Stadium in Vegas. So not the Oakland one, but now moving it to Vegas. And the Chiefs will be the 1972 Chiefs that hosted the first home game of the 72 season to the Dolphins. And knowing the 72 Dolphins being undefeated, the Chiefs lost. So it's not about the first win. It's about the first game played in the home stadium. And that's where I'm going to start renovating things for next year. So I'm really excited about that. But I do want to use these charts just because I started the season with them. And I am going to keep perfecting this process until the end of the season. And then for the Super Bowl, I'll do the first, home game chart. Because the Chiefs are making it. There's my bold prediction. I don't think it's really that bold when you're like a back-to-back Super Bowl team anyways, but we'll go into that later. The Chargers have their Mercury retrograde conjunct Mars retrograde in that first house. Take a minute to look at their chart real quick while I have some delicious water and quiet the coughing. One of my favorite things about Mercury retrograde and Mars retrograde teaming up together, it's almost like your feet and your actions and your movement can like slow down and catch up for once. Both of those being in Leo, it's probably more about emotions and heart-driven behavior. Leo has such a loud energy wherever it shows up. So today, having Mars conjunct Mercury, both retrograde in the first house, in the sign of Leo for the Chargers, I feel like today they will be lashing out emotionally and feeling the confidence and like the waves of how they can handle today's game emotionally. And in the first half, I do believe they're going to be showing up well. They're going to be showing up solid and showing up as a formidable opponent for sure. We're going into the second house, which is ruled by the sun today. And the sun is going to be in that fifth house in Sagittarius at 17 degrees. So with that being said, the sun is going to be loosely square Saturn, and it's going to be very loosely trine Mars retrograde. So interestingly enough, there's going to be a little bit less, I think, of the fast back and forth pace. I feel as though the sun in the fifth house is going to show a creative game once again and a lot of running and scrambling on both sides of the team, both sides of the ball. There's going to be, both teams. There we go. Speaking of slowing down, both sides of the ball wouldn't make any sense because scrambling is going to happen on defense. Of course, they're going to scramble to tackle people and run their hearts out. So, once again, having the Sun in Sagittarius is very much a loud energy as well, meeting the somewhat reserved, somewhat quiet Mars retrograde in Leo, the somewhat less boisterous Mars retrograde in Leo. So that'll be interesting for sure for today's game, having Mercury retrograde trine that energy, as well as loosely forming a grand trine with that Chiron and part of fortune, as well as Mars in Leo station retrograde. So interesting. I do feel as though today will be, once again, less injury prone and more revisiting safety measures, revisiting protocol, revisiting things that they might have missed protection wise. So that'll be definitely interesting to see. With both the Sun and Pluto and Uranus, I don't know why I said both. With all of them there in the second house for the Chargers, I think this is going to be a game where they shine bright. They do great. They're going to have a lot of opposition energy from Saturn with communication. So I feel like physically they look great. Physically they look solid. Physically they look courageous, brave, bold, not afraid to attack, not afraid to make big sudden movements or changes today. I also see Pluto there, meaning that they could transform. They could get better after half. You never know. With Sun, Pluto, and Uranus on the second house, it kind of represents to me that anything could happen as far as the pace of the game. And this is going to be one that Chiefs fans are going to hate me for this, but it's going to go down to the nitty gritty wire again. Because, when not only do the Chiefs have a lot of Virgo energy, but so do the Chargers, and with Saturn, the Moon, and Neptune all opposing that, it's just a very formidable opponent there in the ninth house. So in the third house, having Venus retrograde in Virgo conjunct Mars direct in Virgo with Vesta as well, they are really going to have to make sure that communication is not too angry and not too soft at the same time. Like, I know that sounds crazy, but it's like with Vesta there, it's like you do have to light a fire under people's asses. So maybe we see the Chargers getting heated up and rallying around their team to try to make an impact there. Having today's South Node in between their Vesta as well as their natal North Node in Libra. So they're going through a nodal reversal, as astrologers call it, with the South Node in Libra and the current North Node in Aries being conjunct and opposite of their North Node in Libra. So that North Node in Libra is going to be in the fourth house of today's home team, as well as Juno, Pallas, and Neptune for the Chargers. Since I'm still working with the asteroids, I don't really know what all they mean, but I keep guessing from game to game. They do kind of give vibes. So with Juno and Vesta being linked up there in the fourth house, I feel like if their relationship with today's game can line up and align perfectly, maybe they have a good relationship with the Chiefs, or it's respectful and diplomatic versus being angry and full of punching each other. Libras throw hands too. I think that's what people forget about Libras is they will throw hands. Having Neptune there in the fourth house also kind of indicates rose-colored glasses with the Chargers. They're just trying to do their best, or trying to do their best to shut down the Chiefs, or they are Delulu and think that they are going to come in and win by 30. And no matter what today, no matter who wins, although I do believe the Chiefs will win today, I know that it's going to be a game of resilience. And there's going to be a lot of things that we have to focus on as astrologers, because, with Pluto and Venus conjunct each other in the seventh house and all of that being trine the South Node in Libra, it's a familiar feeling that we've felt before. So I feel like this energy is something that we've definitely gone through before. The 2 degrees of Aquarius there is representing the thunderstorm degree. So it is an unexpected thunderstorm degree in the Sabian symbols. So I do know that one off the top of my head. So if you missed me talking about how I'm memorizing all the Sabian symbols so I can be completely unstoppable when I'm reading charts on the fly, you know, now you have it. I am getting them. So when we look at the seventh house being loosely making an impact today on, to me, the third house south node, it could all be transformative. It could all be surprise burst. It could be things where people, and having that, I guess I'm looking at like 4 different things at once, so I'll slow myself down. But having that able to help Libra placements, I think is going to be huge. That's why I'm not going to say Libras are going to have a rough game today. I think that they have a little bit more bolstering, like boosting energy with that trine from Pluto and Venus, as well as Ceres, if you're paying attention to the asteroids like I am. So yeah, for the fourth house, I think they definitely, as long as they have a diplomatic approach to the Chiefs today, I think everything goes well for the Chargers as far as like back and forths and flare ups. I think they're just going to be angry at themselves if they end up beating themselves more than they attempt to beat the Chiefs. But, it's going to be a very, I feel like, loudly spoken energy from the Chargers, so they're going to show up and they're going to perform. You see their Saturn and Moon conjunction. Once again, this is a noon chart, so that's not going to be an exact moon degree of the Chargers. And once we have the charts of the exact time of kickoff for the games, for the home games, like I said, I was going to be doing in the fall of next year and probably for the Super Bowl, we will have that. We will have the exact moon degree because the moon is important today with it being a moon ruled chart. Having Saturn and their moon at the same degrees as my Uranus and Saturn is pretty funny. So I know this area well. That being in the 6th house of today's game and seeing that Saturn rules over the 7th house as well as the 8th house, it could be interesting to see how they perform in the second half. They could get a quick burst right after the second half, but then that could easily fade out. Having Saturn retrograde does usually indicate a slower to mature, a little bit more of a devil may care attitude at times, especially at 0 degrees Capricorn. But, if this is something that they have physically show up, it could be in bones or things like that, that is kind of like loosely opposing the ascendant. So it will be interesting to see how this chart shows up today, because once again, it'll help me with my practice going into the Saturn ruled 7th house. And we see for today's game Pluto, Ceres, and Venus in there. Nothing for the Chargers going into 7th house, and then going into the 8th house, we see Chiron retrograde there, loosely, not loosely, exactly conjunct the white moon Lilith. And then going into the 9th house, there's not much there. The 9th house is going to be packed for Justin Herbert, and I'll show you guys that chart with the tri-wheel quarterback chart later. But just because the Chargers don't have anything there in this version of their chart doesn't mean anything. Chiron in the 8th house to me shows up as maybe like fucking with Vegas a little bit or messing with the Vegas odds. So this one might not be as easy to bet. Going into the 9th house, like I said, not much energy there. The part of fortune is unfortunately only relevant when you have the exact time of birth, or in this case, exact time of the Charger start. The south node for the Chargers is going to be conjunct the MC. So that's going to be a thing that I think will show up as the anger outburst. And that's going to be, of course, trine Mars retrograde. So if anything, they might have a slow burn, but they are going to be, I think, the more angry and more vocal team today. Going into the 10th house further, we have Chiron and Aries there. And I said that mates a loose grand fire trine with the sun and with Mars retrograde, but it's more with the Chargers' sun than anything else, because Mars retrograde is still like 13 degrees off Chiron and like 9 degrees off from the sun. So 9, 8. 11. There we go. That's showing you where my math can go. I can do all these complex aspects and all these like degrees and interpretations of things, and I'm like, what's adding? So yeah, it's definitely something that would be more of like a loose thing, and I'm not sure is as impactful, but definitely for the Chargers, Chiron and the Sun in the fifth house are going to be felt. They also have Uranus and Leo conjunct their Sun and Leo loosely by 5 degrees. So interesting. Very interesting. So I feel like as though the Chargers are, like I said, going to make a bit of a splash and be a formidable back and forth opponent. I do think this game is going to be another fun down to the wire game because the Chiefs are all over the place. Now, how's that for transitions? Ha! I feel very competent as a host, producer, editor, creator of this show when I can do things like that. Today's rising sign is at 20 degrees Cancer, so we're looking at the Chiefs having that north node right on the ascendant today, and that means their south node is on the descendant. So I feel like there's going to be people that feel very bothered and annoyed with today's game. The general public could feel like it was another nail biter, or this one was like giving people headaches, stomach aches, perhaps with that North Node in Cancer. Today's game also has Mars retrograde there in the first house with Palace, which is the Chiefs' palace and their like burst of wisdom. So maybe their moves aren't the smartest today. Maybe they're a little bit challenged with all that Mars opposing Venus and Pluto and Ceres in the seventh house. The Mars opposition to Pluto and Venus right now is being felt very loudly. So I'm interested to see like calves and ankles are going to be very big, as well as like circulatory systems and the heart today. This is something that I would say is like go and get your heart checked. If I can give anyone any advice, it was last year in April when my father, a Leo Pluto and Venus conjunction in the seventh house, ended up having an emergency open heart surgery. And that still wasn't getting to the bottom of his health problems, because we ended up finding that he had all these blocked arteries and all these blocked things happening in his heart, to the point where I'm like, what was the point of the cardiologist the last 12 years? Did they look at the blocked arteries? No, I don't know. I'm not a doctor. I would just think that that's something that you would do first off. It's like, oh, do you have any clogs in your heart? The thing that we're concerned about. But we found it, and he got another surgery, and he's been rebuilding his physical ever since. So, he has a rising in Aquarius, and having Pluto dance around that was very scary. So around this time of Mars retrograde in Leo, as Leo does rule the heart, the one thing I would like to say to people is get your heart checked, do EKG tests, find out if you've been feeling not like yourself, and having less energy. It was scary to watch, but it's been a blessing to help put my father back together and get him physically back on track. And he's mentally sharp as hell. So it's like having someone that can like boss you around and run circles around you mentally, that you're like, can't you just do this yourself? Why am I taking care of you? But it's humbling, and it's a very lucky experience, in my opinion, to be able to take care of your parents. And, you just got to give back every once in a while. They took care of me, so let's take care of them. But to me, that is more of what like this check your circulatory system, check your heart, make sure you're good, make sure, you're getting enough movement every day. And there's degrees of Leo that are all about how you get stuck in the spiritual. The 24 degrees of the Chiefs Mars is literally represented by a man so stuck in the spiritual, he's lost all track of his physical body. And it can be about like, not making the proper corrections and changes. So definitely something to just keep in mind. I definitely went off track with that one, but it's okay, because I think it's important. This show is not only a show about sports astrology, but these games are current transits that we're all experiencing. So if I can lend any help there, I will. And going into that second house, seeing how we have Mars for the Chiefs there with Uranus there as well. This is very much the pace of the game. They might burn themselves out. They might just be going so hard that their bodies are worn out. I can definitely see that. Virgo represents the physical body and the digestive system and that whole process. And it's like the physical health and wellness of oneself changing with that Uranus there back and forth can definitely be like they look like they're fine, but then they get injured, or they look like they're injured, but then they're fine kind of energy. And that's going to be loud when I talk about the moon conjunct Mahomes' Saturn when we get to the quarterback tri-wheel further breakdown. But going into that second house, having that ruled by the sun and today's sun in the fifth house, controlling the pace of the game, I do feel like that will be quite creative, quite all over the place. Sagittarius, 17 degrees, is represented by an Easter sunrise service draws a large crowd. This is a Sunday service of sorts, going to Arrowhead Stadium as I have grown up with Chiefs football and going to Arrowhead since I was a child. I can say it's a bit of a religious experience, and I could say it's a little bit of a reminder that regardless of all the things going on outside of the world, sports do still unify a lot of people to having fun together. The fun part is big. The 18 degrees of Sagittarius, which is the truth degree for today's sun, is represented by tiny children playing in sunbonnets. And it's all about, they're protected and they're having fun. So I feel like today's game is going to be a lot of fun. The one solution degree to this is it sounds a lot worse than it is. It's pelicans disturbed by the garbage of people move their young to a new habitat. This could be about the stadium. There could be stadium conditions today where, they have to deal with something happening, and this just further reason for the Chiefs to get new land and build a stadium elsewhere besides in this old archaic parking lot. I don't have any opinion of it otherwise. It's just, it is an older stadium and it's hard to rewrite history in that stadium. I think it's going to be great to get through, but I think there's going to be something big happening for the Chiefs with a shift of location, but that's just me. Anyways, so that's what today's sun ruling that second house, the pace of the game for today. I do think that it's going to be all about being playful and having fun again. And it's not like it's going to be easy, but it's just about having a good time. And yes, you are multimillionaires playing a game, so billionaires can make even more money. And it's fun. At the end of the day, it's fun, and it's supposed to be entertainment, yet it is still a business. And that's part of the things that the fans have to realize is that it is still a business. So it's about fun for the players on the field, as having fun and being heartfelt and heart-based as much as possible. And then going into the third house for the Chiefs, you see Ceres, White Moon, Pluto, Juno, and Vesta all in Virgo. That's a very powerful group of placements, and having Pluto there in the third house means they can transform their energy physically through communication and maybe some help from the moon and Saturn opposing. Who knows? I like to look at oppositions as ways that we can grow and expand and change and shift. A lot of people look at oppositions as ways that can constrict people and help them kind of see maybe their shadow side at times. So if this is going to be anything, it could be a teaching game for the Chiefs. If it is not a win, it is definitely a game where we learn something major. So going into the fourth house, the Chiefs don't really seem to have much, but plenty of the players on the team do. So that's going to be just fine. I think that there's going to be a resurgence of Travis Kelce today in a positive way. The fifth house being ruled by Mars, and Mars currently retrograde in the first house. The fifth house could be about literally who is having more childlike joy. And the fifth house being ruled by Mars and Leo is about who is able to make this game fun while kicking ass at the same time. So with Neptune and Lilith in here for the Chiefs, it could just be about slowing, and Neptune retrograde, of course, too, and Lilith retrograde. It could just be about slowing down and figuring it out and figuring out where to go next. And that could be the pace of their kind of team mentality. It could be the pace of the game itself. So the Chiefs showing up as strong as they can and being able to I guess, not fight that Mars squaring Neptune energy, just because they're both retrograde, and I feel like they could actually complement each other. So we'll see. Once again, I like to look at squares as building blocks. So squares to me don't scare me as much. Same with oppositions. Moving into that sixth house ruled by Jupiter, and Jupiter retrograde in the 11th house at that 16 degrees. That is directly opposing today's sun. I think that's what I was trying to say earlier. I was like, Jupiter's big today. Jupiter's big today. And then I just trailed off and didn't respond to any of that. So there was a lot of technical aspects going on earlier. If you missed it, I think I have 2 live streams on Twitter. Who knows? It could have just fixed itself. I have no time to check. I haven't been following the chat. I've been a terrible host in those regards, but I've been killing it on getting through these charts. So I'm going to keep going. Having the Jupiter ruled sixth house, I feel like that does indicate that Gemini and the hands are important today. So hand health, arms, shoulders, lungs. Speaking of lungs, breathe out. That south node on the descendant opposing the ascendant, of course, that's what the angles are. The ascendant, descendant, the midhaven, and the IC down there at 4 degrees Libra. The Chiefs have the south node right where it's going to feel like they've done this all before. And I kind of talked about that earlier, being as the Chiefs are a habitual team at this point. They have been doing things habitually that can show up as different things. And to me, this game being about doing better in the second half for the Chiefs is spot on. All of the Chiefs' shining stars are above that horizon line with, even though they have Saturn in the 8th house, right? Saturn at 22 degrees in the 8th house doesn't always seem like, oh, that's nice, that's strong, that's safe. That could just be a point where we see them kind of like loosen up more, or that's when their discipline kicks in, or that's when their power kicks in, is right after that second half. And we see them maybe go through some foot injury scares today. I do want to say that Patrick Mahomes' Saturn being conjunct the moon as well as Neptune, and it has been for a while. And now that Neptune is stationed direct, we could see a revisit of that ankle injury, or who knows what. Wrist injury is also possible, just because I mentioned that Jupiter ruled 6th house of physical body and wellness is right there to be interpreted as possibly hands and arms, wrist, all that. So definitely looking forward to everyone getting out okay. And like I said, I hate watching injuries on either side of the ball. It doesn't matter to me what team it is. It doesn't matter to me what, is happening. I just don't like watching injuries. Ugh. No, thank you. Then we go into the Mars ruled 10th house and see Jupiter there for the Chiefs, conjunct the MC. So I do think they show out in a big way today, and they do make a statement on some level, but it might not be till the start of the fourth quarter. Venus being in the 10th house today too, I do think that they show up and they are vocal, and they are definitely in presence to be had, and they are going to be very much vocal and loud if needed today. The refs having so much of Mercury retrograde energy there, with the 5th house being where I see gambling, and also refs in the 5th and 11th house axis. I feel like that could be interesting. The Chiefs do have Mercury retrograde there, conjunct Uranus retrograde in the 11th house, but there's also their moon and sun there in the 11th house with Jupiter retrograde and Uranus retrograde. So I do feel like the Chiefs are able to slow it down and figure it the fuck out. So yes, the Chiefs do win now that I do have the chat up. And hi, everyone. I do have the Chiefs winning, and it's going to be a fun back and forth game today. So getting into that tri-wheel, Chargers winning third quarter. Oh, nice. I like that. Looking into the numbers and everything like that. I can go ahead and do my numbers to watch for as well as signs to watch for, and the Chiefs winning by it's very weird to be like 2 or 4 points, but we've seen the Chiefs win by 2 or 4 points this year. So it's like that 2 or 4, but I want to say the 3 because that makes more sense, especially with today's North Node at 3. So I feel like the North Node South Node is indicating a 3-point victory on either side. That North Node being in the ninth house does show a possibility for the Chargers to have that away team victory in Arrowhead, which is something that the Chargers would love to do, I'm sure. But with the Chiefs having so much of their energy kicking in the second half, I feel like they're going to make a formidable stop. They're going to show that they are right there along for the ride, and it's going to be a back and forth game. I know that the Chargers have a lot of momentum for the pace of the game today with the Sun and Uranus and Pluto there in the second house, where the Chiefs have Mars and Uranus there. So it'll be interesting to see. But both having Uranus in the second house, the pace of the game, I think it's going to be back and forth. So the numbers I have to watch for are 4, 6, 15, 20, 22, 48, and 81. And those are all from the degrees found on this chart. So these are things that I kind of like compile, things that I add up in equations, and sometimes I try to do it live. And that's why I was like, you know what, I'm going to do it a little bit differently this time so I can make it a little bit more streamlined. And I don't have to look like an idiot trying to remember all these things, like, Gracey, can you not remember a number you just said 5 minutes ago? Let's be real. So for today's matchup here, you see a lot of what I was talking about already. It's going to be a very intense game. The first quarter looks jam-packed. I look from the AC to the IC for the first quarter, the IC to the DC for the second quarter, DC to MC for third, MC to AC for the fourth. So those are how I break down the games. I really like this method that I've come up with, and I'm still perfecting it each and every time. So it's something that I look forward to each and every time that I do these live streams. It's like learning and shifting. The one thing that I don't tolerate is people like coming on here and then being like, well, you should use some other system because this is what I do and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, no, I'm open to conversation and input because I love that. I'm not open to somebody degrading the work that I do and telling me that I'd be way better if I did X, Y, and Z. It's like, thank you for your opinion that I didn't ask for. But I love hearing, it's my Mars and my descendant. It's like I have a very strong aura and a very strong already narrative that I am working on with my sports astrology work. So I appreciate questions. I appreciate input and observations from other people. It's like when people come on and tell me that I need to go and do numerology, and I'm like, I think it's great to subscribe to different systems and use a bunch of them, but my main system that I use is astrology. So thank you. The signs to watch for this game are going to be Aries, Taurus, Cancer, Leo, Scorpio, and Sagittarius. And these are all from the game chart. So if you want to look at that solo game chart, this is where I'm pulling the numbers from. And then also the signs to watch I do based on the game chart. And then the numbers to watch I pull from the tri-wheel. So with that being said, I'm looking forward to this game for sure. It's going to be a talent battle, like 100%. We are going to look at the extras here. I do have the quarterback tri-wheel, but here's for Justin Herbert's game. There is something that I like to look at, and that is, of course, looking at the moon for players that actually like have an actual birth time, but this is a noon chart. So this Leo moon could be a very, very late Leo moon or 0 degree Virgo moon, or it could be an earlier degree Leo moon, but having a Leo moon nonetheless. Maybe Justin Herbert's emotions come out a little bit stronger today. You can definitely see where his sun in the ninth house, as well as his south node and Jupiter, are going to be loud today. His Jupiter is actually at the whistleblowing degree of Pisces, as known as a girl blowing a bugle in the Sabian symbols. So there's another one that I have for you guys if you're paying attention to my journey of learning and sharing the Sabian symbols. But his sun is very much trine exactly the rising today. So I think that Justin Herbert is going to have a good game. And, with his Mars in Aries conjunct as well as Mars and Mercury in Aries conjunct the MC, today's game is going to be a powerful one, even with Mars retrograde trining those placements. So I do feel like he's going to be dragging a little bit more physically or mentally, definitely mentally with that Aries, but we'll see how he plays it out. Like if he operates from the ego and gets a very loud motorboating ego going on and he just like can't slow it down and it's barreling through everyone else, then I think maybe he could have some problems. But I think that's any time that he plays, especially if he has an Aries Mars conjunct Mercury. That is definitely a powerful combination. So I think Justin Herbert is a very talented player, and he just has to use his mental power and strength to get through this game today and not let it drag him down. So that is my take on those things. Justin Herbert is also experiencing his Venus return. So happy Venus return to Justin Herbert. His Neptune in Aquarius is being visited by Pluto, as well as his Venus in Aquarius is being visited by Pluto. And then he has Uranus in Aquarius. They're loosely conjunct Pluto and Venus. So yeah, very interesting chart for Justin today, as well as his Chiron in the 5th house. So maybe he's not as creative, but people on his team are. So he doesn't have anything in the 6th house of physical body, so it doesn't show like anything major slowing him down or giving him any boost there. So I'm going to look at Patrick's chart because I know that's where I mentioned there could be injuries today, and it could just be something that is like a brief slowing down, temporary thing, like temporarily on the sidelines type energy. And then right back in the game. Mahomes has Saturn opposite his sun natally, so this is something that he has been used to going through a Saturn return. However, while that all opposes his sun and all that can be pretty critical. The more that we see the South Node in Libra creeping up through the degrees of Libra, the South Node in Libra creeping up, yeah, that makes sense. Creeping up through those degrees of Libra, getting to the 0 point of Libra, and that'll be around January 1st. So new year, new North Node and South Node coming up after the new year. They will be shifting into Pisces and Virgo, so that should be interesting. But the more that South Node creeps up, you are going to see the Venus and Chiron of Patrick Mahomes kind of be a little bit louder. That could be, since it is an Aries degree of 1 degree, that could show up mentally for him. So hopefully he is getting plenty of rest and plenty of fresh air. I have his actual birth time for those of you that might just be joining, but I'm not going to use it without his permission. I do have his mother's permission to use it for sports astrology and just for my own personal research. So that's a blessing for sure. However, some of these like his part of fortune and MC and all that aren't accurate. So I'm not going to talk about those, but his sun in the 3rd house there is absolutely accurate and spot on. He will be very important for the communication. As always, him being a leader is very much something that's in his DNA. And I do set the players for noon charts whenever I use their charts with the game, and so that way it can just kind of show, but I don't take any of the noon charts like moon or MCs or any of the part of fortune seriously. Just the major placements that we can accurately time, whether it's noon or 8 p.m. So that's usually pretty accurate. So yeah, we have the sun in that 3rd house, and I definitely think that that's going to be something for today's game that helps the Chiefs kind of carry through, even though that is being ruled by Mercury retrograde today at 10 degrees Sagittarius in the game chart. His sun is ruled by his Mercury in Libra at 19 degrees. That is going to be conjunct today's Vesta. So if he's feeling felt, heard, seen, and nurtured at home in his game against the Chargers, I feel like then we're going to see a much better Patrick Mahomes today. But, the more that the South Node creeps into the 0 point of Libra and then we'll be going into Virgo, I am just going to be curious to see how that plays out for Patrick. So the last time that he would have seen that, it was about 18 years ago. So, yeah. I am definitely excited to see today's game with his Mercury, North Node, and Mars there in the 4th house, and his Mars squaring Mars retrograde exactly in that 1st house of today's game. I believe that he might be able to slow down and stop making as many mistakes where he could be operating from a place of rush with his O-line being trash at moments. I could say that as a Chiefs fan, right? It's okay that we admit that. And going into the 5th house, his Pluto and Jupiter will be there. Jupiter will be loosely conjunct Mercury retrograde at 10 degrees, and then his Jupiter is at 8 degrees Sagittarius. So his Pluto is going to be, somewhat loosely conjunct. Yeah, it's about 8 degrees. I usually like to use a 5-degree orb for these things, but when you look at it in the big picture, it's like when I was just figuring out astrology and I was like, oh my gosh, Aries sun. And then to me, I didn't even know about degrees. I just was like, oh, it's just an Aries sun. It doesn't have anything to do with it. Then around 2009, I discovered the deacons of the signs. And so it was Aries A, Aries B, Aries C. And I'm like, oh, okay. Because I was on a website that was being translated from another language. So I don't even know if that website exists anymore. So I loosely can see how anything, no matter if it's Aries or Libra, is going to be opposing each other. So I try not to think too much about that. But today's biggest thing that is opposing Patrick Mahomes's Mercury is going to be Chiron retrograde there in the 10th house, loosely conjunct by 4 degrees, the part of fortune. So I'm not sure what that's going to be for the Chiefs. I did say Aries were going to have a big game today. I'm not sure if that's going to be at Patrick Mahomes' detriment. So I hope that's not the case with him. His Mercury has been feeling better. I feel as though with that South Node being less close. That was such a interesting time for sure. So the more that the South Node just moves further away, closer to Venus and Chiron, we're definitely going to see some areas of weakness. Of course, that's going to happen. As much as I want to say Patrick Mahomes is superhuman, I know that that's not always the case, especially when you're going through a Saturn return. So moving on through to the 6th house of physical body and health here, I feel as though the Juno there at 22 degrees squaring today's moon might help him have a better relationship with his body and maybe with his lower half and not be running for his dear life as much. Might slow it down a little bit just because, that is also square his Saturn natally. So it might just kind of help him in that fact and not get too emotional. Going into the 7th house, we see his Neptune and Uranus there, loosely conjunct Pluto, Ceres, and Venus, all in Aquarius. So that is less of an impact, as I feel his temperament could just simply change, or his putting it all on his own shoulders or on his own back could easily change. Having the 8th house mostly empty for both the game and Mahomes, going into the 9th house, that's where the travel team could bring the heat and bring some exposure of weaknesses for Mahomes. So I can definitely see this game being heated and back and forth, like I mentioned. Going into the 10th house, we see his South Node there, loosely conjunct Chiron, very loosely with that 8-degree orb. Then you see in the 10th house, nothing really there for Mahomes. And then in the 12th house, you see his moon. And even though that's not his exact degree moon, that is accurate because, it's in the 12th house starting at 18 degrees Gemini, that diabolical degree of Gemini. So today's game being ruled by that Jupiter in the 11th house, today's 12th house game of the game is being ruled by Jupiter in the 11th house station retrograde. I feel that being opposite the sun, the pace could just be like that grueling back and forth low score game that we had recently. I feel like could be kind of the vibe, but at the same time, the high energy feeling has kind of like been swept out with Mars stationing retrograde. So Mercury and Mars retrograde, and then Neptune direct, and still having Chiron, Uranus, and Jupiter retrograde. There's a lot going on in today's game chart. But yeah, looking at the tri-wheel, which is what I'll pull up. There you go. I do think that Mahomes is going to show a little bit more dominance when it comes to the quarterback part. So I feel like he's going to communicate his way out of this, and he's going to be able to either get in the heads or kind of rattle the away team. So hopefully we'll see, because today's game's part of fortune is at that 15 degrees of Aries in the 10th house. So definitely having a positive mental attitude will go far today. And then we see today's vertex. Let me pull that up because I didn't use it in this chart. Today's vertex is going to be in Sagittarius. That's another reason I said watch Sagittarius's today. But yeah, I think this is going to be a fairly positive exchange. I feel like both teams respect each other enough, and they're both young enough and growing enough and going through a lot of shifts and changes enough without me really paying attention to any sports news. Once again, I only follow the Chiefs. I only watch the Chiefs. I do my best to be unbiased. I like to have a myriad of angles and insights into the game so I can pull them up for your guys' benefit. And Patrick Mahomes does have quite a bit of an obstacle to work through today, and hopefully his ankle stays safe. Like I said, I do see that things could be easily undone the moment that they are done. So an injury could look bad, but then it's actually okay, and kind of like we've experienced that with him before. So it'll be interesting to see for today's moon ruled game how emotional it'll get. So they could go the direction of being really positive towards each other and being great and respectful, and they could go to being incredibly back and forth and incredibly combative and vocal against each other. And that is the spectrum that we will see. But I'm excited for the game today. I'm mostly excited for all the things that we can follow along with and learn with and grow with each and every time that we do these chart readings. So very grateful to have all the input now that I finally pulled up the chat. And I think that my stream has been going consistently on all the platforms. When you do things with technology during Mercury retrograde, things can happen. So now that we're adding Mars retrograde on top of it, it's like if you're not balanced internally, the heart is the biggest electromagnetic field that we do generate in our bodies. And if you don't think that that works with technology and can impact your technology, then there's another conversation we need to have. But I feel as though when you are operating from a solid place and your intentions are pure and you're simply just trying to get things to work, then electronics can work with you. I feel like if you're approaching them like, I don't know how this works, and you just hit things until it works and makes sense and does what you want, then that's a totally different approach to technology. But you get what you put in is basically what I'm trying to say. So that's this game, that's this energy right now. Today's game chart is a chart and a map of the transits going on. And if you want to look at that, Mars retrograde opposing Pluto and Venus as something that, is a whole group of wise ancient philosophers being born to radically change something in this, current environment. Sure. I think that's definitely a cool interpretation, especially with that Pisces moon. I love that. But I have a family of Venus-Pluto signatures in astrology. So multiple people in our household have Venus-Pluto conjunct, and it's a spicy energy. So I don't expect things to just be calm simply because Mars is retrograde. I think deep-heated arguments of the past, especially with the Chiefs and Chargers having quite the rivalry through the years, That can be on a heated display for everyone to see. So I'm really excited to see how the game goes. Once again, I do think the Chiefs are going to be pulling this victory off by another margin of 3. I swear I'm not just picking 3 each and every game, but it's like I saw 2, I saw 4. So those are possibilities as well. The numbers to watch today are 4, 6, 15, 20, 22, 48, 81. The signs to watch are Aries, Taurus, Cancer, Leo, Scorpio, and Sagittarius. I kind of want to throw in Aquarius. Let's throw in Aquarius because I feel as though Aquarius with Pluto and Venus are getting a little bit of a boost at the moment. You know, having those placements in early degrees Aquarius or in early degrees Leo, both of them are getting rocked at the moment. So send some love to your fixed sign friends. Send some love to your cardinal sign friends. Send some love to your mutable sign friends. And then we got all of them. But, you know, these placements and these energies are all working together to shift and change us for the better is how I like to view it. And things might be uncomfortable at times. And with this current energy of Mars retrograde, I have mentioned a lot of fake love being dissolved. It doesn't mean that if you're in a relationship that it's going to break up or it's going to end or it's going to dissolve. It just means that people in your life that might not truly authentically support you might not be as active in your life anymore after this Mars retrograde is finished in February. So I think that if people are paying attention to those who show up loudly in their lives consistently and those that show up loudly for themselves consistently, I think we're going to have a lot of spotlights on that type of energy and we can learn from those people. We can all grow because the only thing, in my opinion, that's the worst thing you could do in life is have a God-given talent or a natural gift that you have in your body, in your bones, in your hands, in your mind, in your voice, in any part of you, and you don't use that on some level and you don't get to explore that in this lifetime. And, you know, my goal with astrology is to help people find their magic in each and every way and in each and every season, because everything's going to be, you know, a map of the ifs and, you know, the different paths you can take, right? You know, astrology is a giant blueprint of where you can go, how these energies can interact with your natal chart, how you can interact with the energies all around you every day, down to like the days of the week, hours of the day. You can use astrology for anything. And when we see Pluto going through Aquarius further, we see Neptune shifting from Pisces to Aries. I feel like we're going to be seeing a rebirth and an age of wisdom and finding information and being a self-starter and entrepreneurship, especially in the spiritual community. There could be a lot of people that have been scamming others and using others to live their lavish lifestyles or pretend that they are these all-powerful gurus with all the information, but they don't have anything to back it up besides their own downloads from wherever. You know, we're going to be in a day and age where data is important, and astrology, whether you believe in it or not, is data, and it's happening whether you believe in it existing or not. And that's something that we're going to be seeing with the quote unquote age of Aquarius. And you don't have to think that we're in the age of Aquarius. You could think that we're still in the age of Pisces. You could think that we're even in the age of Gemini with all the goddamn information we have out there that no one wants to use. But there's so many levels to the experience of daring to put yourself out there and do something differently. So with every live stream that I do in sports astrology, I dare to be a little bit different and be accused of being a little bit delusional as well. You know, I have a sports media background. I come from the sports radio and sports media world, and I have been on both sides of the camera where I've been producing, editing, and doing agent work behind the scenes, as well as being the talent on screen and on mic as well. So I have a lot of experience in the world of media, and I wanted to use that in a way that I could actually share what I've been learning and share what I've been doing, because part of my personal design as a human being is sharing the information as much as I can with others. So I have a lot of projects that feature tons of free information available on my website, northernastrology.com. my YouTube. If you're watching this on YouTube, feel free to subscribe and please comment on anything that you find interesting or have any questions about for me. I will get back to it as soon as I can and maybe even incorporate it in a show. Shout out to Belly Jellies for asking me that question and leading me down the rabbit hole of answering it. I was really excited to have my Real Housewives show debut, and I talked about how I have something for, the men with sports astrology and then something for the women with Bravo TV, but you can like both, like me. I watch the games on Sundays and then I watch the lineup of Real Housewives and find them all fascinating to the point where I asked them for the time that they were born, and then now I'm doing a show featuring them. So you never know where putting yourself out there can go. I know it's difficult. I know it's scary. I know this day and age that there's 1,000 voices out there in the creative community, but with the more that we see Jupiter through Gemini and then Uranus and Gemini, I feel like those plethora of talking heads that just seem to be full of divisive opinions or scammy information or fear-based information where they're just trying to scare you into believing that they know what's going to happen next. Astrologers have a very clear map of the energies of the skies of the collective. And when we look into those things, it's based on a lot of different energies. So I don't want to say trust astrologers over others. I want to say find the method that works for you. And if you like seeing people predict things from psychic download places, find those people. If you like seeing people predict from numerology, find those people. There's plenty of them. I like doing my sports astrology work with the Sabian symbols and the degrees because it's what works for me, breaking down charts for businesses and people and relationships. So I am a huge proponent of finding what works for you and then applying it to something you love. So am I a leading expert on sports astrology? No. Am I someone that's consistent and shows up weekly to do a sports astrology show? Yes. And 90% of being an expert is putting in the work to be one. That's it. Most of being at the top of what you do and at the top of the industry is putting in the work and the hours and the professionalism to get there. And I take myself seriously. Of course, I'm a Saturn dominant human being ruled by the moon in Gemini in the 11th house. So I'm going to be yapping up a storm for decades to come. So if you are tired of seeing me, that's going to be unfortunate because I'm going to be everywhere, if not more than ever. So I'm looking forward to the rest of December. We have the game coming up next week, which, don't worry, I totally know what that is. I'm looking it up, so you guys don't have to worry about that. Next week, oh boy, the Chiefs are heading to Cleveland for the game to be at noon on December 15th, and then the Chiefs will be hosting the Texans on December 21st, so you guys are going to be seeing me on winter solstice. I will be promoting my new winter solstice magazine. I'm so excited. And then we will have the Chiefs on the 25th, so you guys get to see me 3 times in a 10-day period. I'm very excited for you. And I think I am going to do a Christmas morning thing because, like I said, it'll keep me looking nice for Christmas with the family, and why not? And it'll be way after the kids open presents. Kids are up at the crack of dawn to open presents, so absolutely know that I will be too. But I'm really glad that I could do the show today and glad that I could kind of find a pace offline that worked to do the show and keep up the momentum and just do this show from a place of love, because I absolutely love the Kansas City Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes was drafted when I was on ESPN Kansas City and had a weekly show on there. And it was this big moment where I'm like, if we draft Patrick Mahomes, our lives will change for the better. And I just knew it. The way he played at Texas Tech. I also used to cover Big 12 football and covered K-State for SBNation.com. And those things were seeing a preview into the future, being able to see the Big 12 and Patrick Mahomes, Baker Mayfield, all those guys that were around that time. You got to see them go against each other, and it was mind-blowing. So definitely have a little bit of bias towards the Chiefs, but the Chiefs will be winning and pulling this one off today and going into their travel game with another win And if not, it's because the Chargers and Justin Herbert decided to put on a damn show and they regulated their emotions in order to do that. But I do feel as though that's not going to be the case. So if you have been enjoying this stream, enjoying this conversation, enjoying this subject, or completely confused and lost, like I said, I have a lot of resources on my website. I have an astrology 101 book that is free. If you go to northernastrology.com and check out the library, that is where my magazines exist. The Northern magazine is Purpose, Wisdom, and Nature, all combined into one with a heavy focus on astrology, as well as, we've had a lot of like differing opinions of different things and people that believe in Gnosticism, people that believe in your own spirituality dictating what you do, people that have different backgrounds than I do, people that live in different countries than I do. And I'm trying to unite as many people from as many walks of life as possible into the magazine and find them featured in there. And it's like really, really cool to be able to do that and provide it for free. So that's something I'm proud of and I brag about it a lot. I also have my own publishing house that'll be putting out a book on January 1st, so keep your eyes open for that one. But best way to follow along with me is definitely through Twitter or X if you are very modern and with the times. I'm going to call everything from their like original name. I liked Vine before TikTok ripped off the concept and changed it into something totally different. But yeah, like those things that like all of the ways to connect with me are all on my website and I don't need to go on TikTok rants. You will never find me on TikTok. I'll just say that. There's so much about the free stuff that I have on my website that's available that you can like learn yourself, but there's also readings available if you feel as though you want some help breaking that down or seeing yourself through the lens of someone else. That's really all I do. I don't tell you anything that you don't know about yourself already. I just simply remind you of your own magic. So if that is something that you want done, I have plenty of availability through the end of December. I will be on and off getting to chart reports and I promise them in a 7 to 10 day window of booking. So regardless of when it is, I will get to it. But I'm looking forward to all the exciting changes through the end of December and launching all the projects and sharing them all with you. So thank you for tuning in this far. And I look forward to being here next week. Yeah, next week. All right, guys, I will see you on the 15th. Until then, check out anything you want on my website, read my blog posts, check out my social media feeds. I have a few Instagram posts. I'm trying to be more active on Instagram. I didn't even mention Instagram. You can always find me at North Astrology there too. So I look forward to connecting with you guys and hearing any of your questions or insights. Leave them in the comments and I'll get back to them. So once again, my name is Gracey with Northern Astrology, and this has been a blast.